In this lecture, we would like to discuss about DETENTE. So, the very period of DETENTE continued from 1969 to 1979, and in simple words, the term DETENTE, which is borrowed from French, means reduction of tension between the superpowers. The tension in international relations had existed between Union of Soviet Socialist Republic and United States of America on the one hand, and between United States of America and China on the other. The term data in this context indicates the easing of tensions between USSR and USA and between USA and China. Then the envisages a conscious and deliberate reduction of tension in central balance of power. Cold War assumes a conscious maintenance of tensions at a relatively high level. Data has also been defined as a diplomatic strategy which may help to undermine the essential point that does not in any way imply an end to the contest for diplomatic influence, only a mode of making the contest less dangerous, moving it back to the nuclear brink and giving it possibly a more creative relationship. Data should not be misunderstood for peace. Peace is an objective. Data is a diplomatic mode or strategy by which that objective can be realized. And now we would like to discuss those factors which influence and prompted the two superpowers to work for data. And for the very first factor that we could discuss, both the superpowers wanted to reduce the danger of nuclear war, which posed a threat to their very existence. Secondly, both the superpowers wanted to stabilize the arms competition on the basis of parity. The Soviet Union was particularly keen on this parity because this would ensure equality with United States as a global power. And in the third factor, both the superpowers were keen to establish normal relations between countries of Western and Eastern Europe to relieve tension in the region. So, America, in this regard, was keen to end the Vietnam War in an honorable way and thought that Soviet Union could greatly help in this. So the Soviet Union was keen to work on data because this could ensure her access to Western capital, technology, etc., which were badly needed for the growth of Soviet economy. So, beside these factors for data, now we'll go to the very data in between United States and Soviet Union. As the earlier mentioned above, progress towards data between Soviet Union and United States had begun. Even during the high days of Cold War in early 1960s, the Cold War had started declining in 1959. Khrushchev, the then Prime Minister of Soviet Union, envisages the Soviet intention of promoting industrialization by buying Western factories and the quantum of Russian foreign trade with the West has grown ever since. The earlier apprehension harbored by the West that communism was about to sweep the world had started waning. The Yugoslavia was able to maintain its independence. The Sino-Soviet rift had widened. The aversion of the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 envisaged increased Soviet attitudes of hostilities had gradually declined. The sale of American wheat in 1963 to Soviet Union was a hallmark, and thereafter the trade with communist world had fairly begun. Both the superpowers cooperated with each other, and in 1963 it was possible to ban atmosphere polluting nuclear testing. By 1964, the US President Johnson was speaking of improving relations with communist countries and the desire to build bridges across the Gulf, which separate us from Eastern Europe. During 1965 and 1966, small but significant efforts were made towards DETENTE, which included the inauguration of direct air service between New York and Moscow and relaxation of control on export to communist countries. A notable feature of this period was the emergence of the Third World nations, and this was in particularly due to the success of DENTA. The emergence of the non-alignment movement was in one way discouragement to the superpower rivalry. The progress towards DENTA suffered setback following the escalation of the Vietnam War in 1965 and the outbreak of Six Days War of June 1967 in the Middle East, which placed American and Soviet Union in the opposite camps. However, in 1968, both the superpowers agreed on the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty (NPT), expressing their common desire in nuclear monopoly against the Third World and other non-nuclear powers. The two countries also exchanged consular relations. So also we found another period development. The Soviet Union had graduated towards a more realistic view of the world scene. The tightening of its grips over Eastern Europe in 1968 and afterwards made Soviet Union more confident in easing tensions with the West. Russia took a soft turn towards this in 1970 when an agreement was signed for renunciation of force and recognition of the European status quo with West Germany. Soviet Union had improved relations with France and West Germany and was courting Japan to secure Japanese cooperation in the development of Eastern Siberia. There had been brief hopes was in Soviet US relation as in 1955, 1959, 1963, and 1968. President Nixon's visit to Beijing in February 1972 made it both easier and imperative for Russians to extend data to the United States. And in the same year, President Nixon visited Moscow A number of agreements were signed between President Nixon and Soviet President Leonid Brezhnev. These included limiting anti-ballistic missiles installations and number of missile launchers for 5 years. Among non-military agreements were several for cooperation in medical and scientific research. Agreement on a joint space venture reflected the permanent Soviet needs for technological input from the West. And 1973 President of Soviet Union Brezhnev visited United States and political relations improved along with economic cooperation. And a year later, President Nixon also visited Moscow in 1974. The momentum of DETENTE kept its pace even under President Ford, who succeeded President Nixon. So in December 1974, very useful agreements were signed between Soviet Union and United States. And the very agreement on major nuclear weapons known as SALT I, the trade between the United States and Soviet Union, which had declined during 1974, resurged in 1975 with sales of industrial equipment and grants. So in 1975, American and Soviet warships fed calls to Leningrad and Boston, respectively displaying an unprecedented gesture of amity. The SALT talks continued during 1976 as well. The SALT I was to expire in 1975-77, and hence both superpowers were having negotiation on reduction of arms and work out details for SALT II with the installation of the new president in United States in 1978, President Jimmy Carter. The spirit of DETENTE continued. So, the SALT I agreement, which was concluded in 1972 and formally lapsed on 1977, and in consequence to that, negotiation of a treaty with the United States and Soviet Union on the limitation of strategic offensive arms during the period was signed in 1985 by 1979 by President Carter of United States and President Leonid Brezhnev of Soviet Union, and that became known as SALT II for a period up to 1985. There was a considerable opposition to SALT II in the United States Senate, and consequently it was not ratified, as because the sudden political upheaval in Afghanistan and the Soviet armed intervention in Afghanistan gave a further jolt to the spirit of DETENTE, which had been progressing steadily. As President Carter in 1980 announced that because of the intervention of Soviet troops in Afghanistan, Senate consideration of the treaty was to be deferred. President Reagan, who succeeded Carter, however, decided to observe SALT II without ratification and continued to do so till he finally decided to bypass the same in June 1986. So the failure of the SALT II and the Soviet American relationship, which deteriorated due to the Soviet military offense in Afghanistan, and also the failure of United States to attend Olympic Games in Moscow in 1988, and the Soviet boycott of Olympic Games in Los Angeles in 1984, overthrow of constitutional regime in the Caribbean island of Grenada by USA troops, which was severely condemned by Soviet Union, and shooting down of the South Korean Boeing 747 airliner, and the Sakhalin Island by the Soviet fighters. So these developments permitted to deteriorate the period of data in between Soviet Union and United States. And now we will discuss another period of data in between another two powers, the Sino and American data. The beginning of the Sino-American data is traced from the year 1972 when President Nixon of USA paid a visit to China. In fact, a beginning in this direction had been made even earlier following American disengagement from Vietnam. So, it may be observed that relations between China and United States had got strained following the establishment of People's Republic of China in 1949 on account of American support to the nationalist leader Chiang Kai-shek. Even after the communist victory, the Americans continues to extend support to Chiang Kai-shek and were greatly instrumental for the existence of Taiwan government. Americans refused to grant recognition to the communist government of China and continued to maintain intimate relations with Taiwan. The hostility between China and America further increased during the Korean War due to Chinese interventions and support to North Korea. United States firmly opposed the entry of People's Republic of China in the United Nations. Despite this split between Soviet Union and China, and often clashes between the forces of the two countries on their borders. United States did not evince much interest in China. The American involvement in Vietnam and the ongoing cultural revolution in China between 1966 and 69 also deterred Americans from taking any interest in China. So, the very relationship between further convinced the Chinese leaders that the real threat to Chinese security lay not from the Soviet Union but from the United States. And the Soviet intervention in Czechoslovakia in August 1968 and the advocacy of Brezhnev doctrine whereby Soviet Union asserted its right to intervene on behalf of the socialists further convinced the Chinese leaders about the expansionist intentions of Soviet Union. The growing power of Japan in the region was also looked by the Chinese leaders with consideration. And they realized that more intimate relations with Japan could be possible only if an improvement in relations with the United States took place. The growing conflict between China and Soviet Union, the growing pressure on the USA to withdraw from Vietnam and reduce the American military presence in Asia, and the re-emergence of Japan as a major economic power in the region. These are the outcome of the conflicting situation leading to Sino-American data. So, in February 1972, Nixon visited Beijing, and after the Nixon and the then Chinese Prime Minister Zhou Enlai meetings, which is known as Shanghai Communique, was issued, which was a great step in direction of normalization of Sino-US relations. The two countries agreed to lay aside the Taiwan issue and try to develop cultural and diplomatic contracts. Thereafter, appreciable progress was made in Sino-American data. As in 1979, the USA government formally recognized People's Republic of China. And in March 79, the two countries exchanged ambassadors, and thus normal diplomatic relation between the two countries came to be established. So, after discussing the relationship and the developments which led to Sino-American data, now we would like to discuss the very impact on setback which resulted during the period of data. So the Sino-USA data had manifold impact. In the first place, it provided a fillip for normalization of Sino-Japanese relation. China indicated its desire to establish formal relations with Japan under successor of the Japanese Emperor Seto. The new Japanese government under Tanaka also showed eagerness to improve relations with China. The 1972 summit meeting between the leaders of two countries took place at Beijing, as a result of which Japan agreed to cut off official ties with Taiwan government and establish diplomatic relations with Beijing. Secondly, it provided an impetus to US Soviet data in Europe. It appeared that the Soviet Union was more concerned about the growing influence of China, which had stepped off its political and economic activities in Asia. This change in big power realities also had its repercussions on the relations of North Korea and South Korea, and they agreed to hold bilateral talks. Thirdly, Soviet reaction to the Sino-USA data was mixed. On the one hand, because of its insistence on legitimacy of Soviet contacts with the USA, it could not challenge the propriety of USA data. On the other hand, it fears, American collusion against Soviet interests. It therefore stepped off worldwide diplomatic maneuvers to counter the increased support to India, made reapproachment with West Germany, attempted closer relations with Japan. And finally, it produced deep impact on the power relationship in the region and to a large extent prompted the Indo-Soviet Treaty of 1971. And now we would like to discuss those setbacks to the Sino-US detente. As United States promised not to upgrade Taiwan's military technology so long as there was no risk of China Taiwan war. As a result of this understanding, Chinese withdrew most of their armed forces opposite Taiwan. However, contrary to the assurance given by the American leaders, in particularly President Reagan, on assumption of his decided to upgrade the Taiwan Air Force. This naturally evoked strong reaction from China, which asserted that arms sale could now no longer be tolerated as they violated Chinese sovereignty and constituted interference in China's internal affairs. So the Chinese leaders alleged that USA government by supplying arms to Taiwan was strengthening their determination to avoid negotiation with China. In particular, in 1982, Reagan administration decided not to sell FX fighter aircraft to Taiwan and merely agreed to continue to produce F-5 fighter jets. China was not happy and protested against this decision. So in 1982, USA announced its decision to sell spare parts to Taiwan, and this invited further protest from China. Even though it did not take any retaliatory actions, as the spare parts were promised before the Sino-USA talks on arms issue began, and that no actual weapons were involved. No doubt China demanded a cessation of the arms sale by USA to Taiwan, but it adopted a realistic attitude and insisted that a time limit be set for the phasing out of arms sales. However, the American government did not oblige China and went ahead with the supply of arms to Taiwan. It may be noted that despite the attitude of US government, the Chinese do not seem to be interested in breaking off the growing economic and cultural links with USA, and it would be too much to assert that this deterioration in Sino-USA relationship would automatically lead to Sino-Soviet reapproachment, even though some improvement in Sino-Soviet relation cannot be ruled out. And now we would like to discuss finally the very foundations and consequences of data. So, the very inception of data was marked by the expansion of trade, science, technological cooperation between US and Soviet Union. The change from a policy of confrontation to that of at least limited cooperation has been marked by number of states intended to reduce the likelihood of war. Prominent among them are US Soviet agreement not to use force or the threat of force in interstate relations, an understanding that neither superpower would seek unilateral advantage over the other and adopt measures to limit armament, mostly in the case of strategic nuclear forces. Though the negotiations leading to SALT I in 1972 and in 1974 and the SALT II, the ceilings have been placed on the American and Soviet strategic nuclear delivery vehicles of intercontinental range and on anti-ballistic missiles. There is a need for imposing curbs on bombers and missiles, the nuclear capable attack aircrafts, rockets, etc. Imposition of controls on armament is essential to maintain the spirit of data. So these are the foundations of data, the very period from 1969 to 1979, and the very consequences of data include the reduction in armament, ensuring better security by reducing the likelihood of war, the money and resources used in preparation of armaments can be diverted to developmental activities. Data helps in reduction of armaments. Before data, both the superpowers were involved in mad arms race. Data paved the way for agreements for limitation on use of force. As Dr. Kissinger, the then Secretary of the State of United States, once said to conduct confrontation policies where the states are going to be determined by nuclear weapons is the height of irresponsibility. It is advisable for the superpowers to turn to measures which would affect the ability to employ military power instead of merely the incentives to do so. Herein, contribution of arms control is significant and it can first of all preclude the either side from acquiring capabilities which might enable or induce to resort to use of force. Secondly, it can inhibit deployment which might facilitate the exercise of power already in being, as by envisaging untrue strength allowed in a given area. Thirdly, it can, in consequence of these and other measures, alienate fears concerning actual or potential imbalances in military capabilities, thereby reducing incentives of armed builds up. Data can also contribute to security by reducing the likelihood of war and by increasing the political cost and hardship of shifting from a policy of cooperation to one of confrontation. So, in our conclusion on data, would like to present that it may be said that though as a result of US refusal to ratify SALT II as a protest against the Soviet intervention in Afghanistan and the growing tension between the two superpowers in the Gulf region or in Horn of Africa, as well as the Indian Ocean, the spirit of Deta has completely succeeded, even though it has not become wholly defunct. However, despite this setback, the leadership of the two superpowers is quite conscious that confrontation and conflict with each other is not in their national interest, and some way should be found to avoid further escalation of Cold War. This is a hopeful sign, and we can expect that soon the spirit of Deta, which has suffered a temporary eclipse, shall come to dominate the relations between the two superpowers.